Hi, my name is Paddington Nundu and welcome back to the African Career Podcast. Today we have a very good host in the house called Charity Bafana. She is currently the Director of People and Operations at Restless Development. Charity comes with close to 2 decades of working experience, especially in HR, or currently known as people management. She has worked with philanthropic organizations. She has also done work with NGOs, also the church, and she has done work around education as well. And we all know that Restless Development does more work in and around youth development. Charity, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Paddington. You make me sound old.
Have I done justice in terms of covering the basics of where you have come from and where you are at the moment?
I think you have. My work has been mainly around youth development in different areas within youth development. It can be programming side. And now I have shifted, I think, within the last decade in the operational side, the behind the scenes, because I've seen the importance of the inside out approach of running organizations. So it's great when you're doing programming because it's outward facing. But the impact of programming, I believe, is the success is determined by what happens inside. So what you do with your people, what you do with your systems, who are the people who are going to do the work.
That speaks more to a lot of self-management. What does it look like for you, or what do you think it should look like for another young person out there?
Self-management is different for different people. For me, it is not work-life balance. I don't think there is such a thing called work-life balance. There's synergy, creating harmony within the space you're in. So early career, you might try to do work-life balance and balance your life in some way. But as you grow, whether you decide to have a family or take on other responsibility, you want to create synergy. So you want to create harmony in what you do. So synergy could mean in a specific phase, you're working a bit more. And synergy in another phase of your life might mean work slows down and you're focusing on other things. In all of it, it needs to be harmonious for you. And you have to be at peace with whatever happens. So it's not always balanced. Something has to give at different points.
What you're sharing is coming from a ton of experience. I know maybe when you graduated, there were things that you thought this could be the right way out of it. So taking back again a message to students at the moment, what should they do to expect, or what should they do or either expect as they then get into the workspace? Because I'm sure everyone thinks that work-life balance is the real deal.
So once you go into the workspace, there's need for you to have an open mind. A lot of us are very idealistic in how we view the working space as we graduate, as we transition into work life. You studied as an accountant, you studied computer science, and you expect, I will be hired within 6 months and I will transition into the workplace and everything will be wonderful. But in our African context especially, it's not linear and it's not straightforward like that. You will take a while sometimes to go into the workspace. And once you're in, you might find that what you studied and what your first job is are going to be completely different. So you need to have an open mind. You need to be ready for something different. You need to accept the no's. The no's are going to come 1,000,001 in the beginning. So you're going to be told you don't have enough experience, you're not quite a fit for us. it's all important in your journey. It's demotivating, especially if you have the ideal of what transitioning should look like for you. It might take a while, but embrace the journey, embrace the lessons. Yeah, so that's a long answer to your question.
Yeah, just to follow up on that.
Yeah.
What should we say there is somewhere where there is a gap in terms of, like you're saying, you might actually study for one thing, but when you then get to the workplace, you might actually discover more things that you are maybe capable of doing or that you want to do. So do we only then say there's one line to it, that maybe there's a challenge in you choosing a career in the beginning, or you might even choose something that you think this is the way, but then, when you get to the workplace, it's a different game altogether?
I think it's important to understand, and some of us have understood this over time, not in the beginning, that a degree or your initial qualification just lays the foundation. It gives you some critical skills that you need to become a successful grown-up or a successful professional. So you get those critical skills, you get time management skills, you get those initial self-management skills. And you need that in the beginning. You get discipline as well. You have a university timetable, you have deadlines, you have all of that. You need that regardless of what you're studying. But as you go into the professional space, your dreams, your aspirations, what you enjoy, what you like, what you're passionate about might change. So allow yourself to evolve into that, but don't disregard what your foundation was. I actually know someone who studied zoology, but they ended up in the banking sector. So this zoologist, initially their passion was all things zoology, and after they graduated, they realized that, okay, maybe opportunities in zoology weren't that many, or at least the opportunities that were there weren't as lucrative. They allowed themselves to open up their minds, open up their mindset to new opportunities, and they landed in the banking sector. So the skills in critical analysis, in research that they learned in their zoology degree landed them a business analyst role in the bank.
That should have been a very open-minded HR person hiring them. I would imagine.
Yeah.
Because in most cases, I remember, as I also work with students, there was a student who struggled finding attachment because the companies she was going to, they were asking, we do not know that degree. It was a new program that was introduced by the university. And even for attachment, the HR manager is like, we don't know this qualification and we don't know where to place you.
This is where open-mindedness is important. I didn't go into HR straight after university. That's what I studied. But there's one thing I didn't like about the field then. It was very tick box in nature. So you have to do this, you have to do this. This A, B equals C, 1 and 2 equals 3. But that's not how my mind functioned. My mind knew most of the times we maneuver within the gray areas. Things are not always black and white. So now the space has evolved into opening your mind and looking at things like competency-based hiring. So I'm looking at what you're competent at as opposed to what your qualification says. So in my interview, I'm asking questions that are related to how you can do the job, not focusing on what you qualified as that says you must do the job. There are some areas, like in medicine, you have to study medicine, right? I can't just hire you as a doctor based on your passion.
For medicine, with a political science degree.
Not at all. It's very different. But in other fields, there is that flexibility to just take someone with what they're capable of versus what they studied. And you'd see those people thrive as well in the workplace.
From your experience of hiring so far, with what you are saying, what has been maybe one or two key things that makes someone stand out in an interview? To actually say, you always, when you put a job, a call for applications today, you get 100 or 200 applications, if not 500.
Yeah.
Then you have to go through each and every one of them, or you have a system that does it. But it takes you to a small group of maybe 10 or 15 to an interview. What then separates the person who gets hired from the rest, especially if it's an entry-level job?
Entry-level job. First of all, I have to forgive you for not having experience, right? You're coming
from college, yeah.
Straight out of college. But your student resume, for me, is important. Young people think that if you study and that's it, that's enough to get your job. I'm looking at your full resume as a student, and you start building it way when you're in high school. And by a resume, I mean your portfolio of what you've done as a student besides your academic. Well done for achieving first-class degrees. But I would like to know, what were you besides your straight A's? Which societies were you a part of? Which initiatives were you involved in? What else were you interested in besides what you studied? That shows me what kind of individual you are. It also shows me the level of curiosity you have. Curiosity is important in the workplace. So I need someone who looks beyond face value on what they do. So that person is going to be a problem solver if they're curious, if they think critically about things. So those are the things I want to look at. Were you a member of the Toastmasters Club? Were you debating? Were you a Habitat for Humanity member? What were you doing? It speaks to also, besides your job description, how else you're going to contribute to the organization. So it's important for me to look at your resume. So the more interesting looking your resume is, for someone with a psychology background like myself as well, I can read into things and try and figure out what sort of person you are as an individual. So I'm looking at that person stands out for me. And also the way you answer questions in the interview shows a level of critical thinking and how open-minded you are. It's not necessarily about how many questions you ask me. When I ask, okay, I'm done asking you questions, do you have any questions for me? And then you give me a long list of questions. It's not that. It's really the thought you put into responding to the interview question. So those are the kind of things that stand out.
I don't think in my years of going for interviews, whenever I was asked, in the interviews I was asked to give or to say something, I don't think I've ever asked a question. Maybe that's why I was not getting hired. But there's a book I was reading recently, which on HR, which was saying, in most instances, the best interview candidate is not usually the best hire. How then do you, because I think you would only see that when the person is already working with you, but is there any way that you separate the two?
It's difficult during the interview. I think it takes a bit of experience of just assessing people at different levels, understanding people in general. You will need at some point to say, okay, I'm taking a chance on this one. So it is a risk to some extent. You've ticked all the boxes, you've answered the question. In the organization I'm in, we do say with some roles we hire for potential. Mainly because it's a youth development organization as well, and you want to give opportunities to young people. So you'll know they won't tick all the boxes. So it means that if you meet the critical areas that we need to fill for this role, I'm leaving room for growth. So for me, it's about, okay, you can do this job. What else can you give me? That's where the additional stuff of your resume comes in. Paddington comes in, he's applied for a marketing job, and technically you're good. You go through all the scenario-based questions and you seem to answer them pretty well. But in addition to that, I want to see what is it about Paddington that puts him on the side from others, right? So I'm looking at what else you've contributed in the spaces you've in. If you talk about the little innovations you've done, even if it's a small thing, like just putting a note to say, please clean up after yourself when you use the kitchen. So it shows a level of responsibility and some stewardship on your part. So things like that stand up. It's small things, but it needs a trained eye also to look at.
So I'm trying to look for the best phrase to phrase this. What's the probability level that as an entry level I should look into in terms of if a job application is put out there and I'm looking at my CV, should I tick all the boxes of the qualifications needed? Or if I tick all the boxes, what does it mean? And how far should I go in terms of if they need 10 things, is 7 okay? Is 8 okay? Or if I go to 5 or 4, I should not even waste my time applying for that job. What's the probability level that I should apply for a job?
So my fellow professionals in the space say, if you tick all the boxes for that role, you're probably overqualified. So they're advertising for this and you meet every area. It probably means that you're going to peak in that role sooner than the average person, and you're already looking for opportunities to grow. So statistically, they say about 70%. So if you meet 70, so 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10 of the qualifications or skills required for that job, then you're likely to be competent. You're leaving room for you to grow, right? You're leaving room for experiential learning. You're leaving room for curiosity. You're leaving room for innovation within the job. So yeah, 70%.
But the 70 then includes also the critical skills that are needed for the role, right?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course. We can't now say we want you for a technical job and you have 0. At least have something, right? A passion on its own won't get you a job. But we do have, we need some level of skill. Your qualification itself might not lock into the skills required, but you have other experience that might lock into what is required for the job.
So far from, you're almost 2 decades in the business.
Don't remind me.
The world has changed so much from what was happening when you finished college and what is happening now when people are finishing college today. UZ was graduating its students recently. What then are the key skills that every young person should say, I should have this? By the time I graduate, this is what I should have on top of my qualification. Maybe 3?
So I think you need also to research into the field, because once you're studying, you already know which area you want to go into. We need critical thinking. Well, so critical thinking, you're going to get it at university through whatever course you're going to do. But you're dissecting things. So it means your mind is open to other things. And try to do more than what is presented to you. So you're in university, you're studying a political science degree. Can that not be all you leave the university with? Pick up a tutoring job, tutor someone, impart knowledge, work at a restaurant, work in the library. So there you're getting more skills than what you started with. So you're learning interpersonal skills, you're learning to interact with people, you're learning just basic discipline of working in an environment with other people. And you're also learning money management. If you're being paid, you're getting a bit of allowance, you're getting something, and you're learning how to manage yourself. And critically, also learning as part of self-management, you're learning time management. So you're putting your life in boxes. This is the time I'm going to work in the library. In the library, I'm going to do this, and that. After that, I have to study for a test. I have an assignment. I have to do this. I have to study. So you're already creating discipline, which is something you're already late learning as you get into the workplace. You're a foot behind everyone else. So think of what your 360 life as a student looks like. And that includes more than just your studies. So it's learning to work with people, learning to speak to people, reading widely, watching current affairs, knowing what's happening in the world. The world is much smaller now through technology. So you can't just know what's happening in your small pool when the world is much bigger.
I'm sure an addition of those skills includes CV writing or resume. How many pages should I have as an entry level? I'm mostly interested with entry level because I've seen different page sizes and designs of resumes or CVs. What would be your best size of a CV for an entry level job, and some crazy designs you've seen as well?
Oh wow.
That you do not approve of.
An embedded video in the CV. That was the worst.
That's new.
It was
a link.
It was a link with an embedded video of someone introducing themselves. It was cute, but not for that particular job. So the world of CV writing has evolved. Right now, the space we're in is keep it simple. I'm sure you've heard this before, that a recruiter takes about 3 to 5 seconds to look through a CV. Even less if you're an entry level, because your CV isn't that long. And I don't want to see that you won a merit in grade 7. I'm not interested. So with your entry level roles, usually also the job ad will guide you. Some say send us a 1-page summarized CV. Some will say a 2-page. Others for higher roles will say 4 pages max. So pay attention to that first and foremost. And it's okay not to have a lot of things, but you will be embarrassed on your own when your CV is half a page, which therefore means that you focused on your studies and nothing alone. So a page is good. Don't make it flowery. Just get straight to the point. What did you study? Do you have any work experience? And what skills are you bringing to this job? And keep it to your university. If you want to list the courses you did, just stick to the courses related to the role you're applying to. In your experience, that's where you put in 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever you've done. But in there, don't list the duties and responsibilities. Anyone can Google that. Look at your achievements. So if you worked at Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC, for example, or Chicken Inn, what did you do? If you were a till operator, you can say you achieved this amount. Maybe your till had the highest takings for the day at some point. That is an achievement, because you met the target, right? Or you can say you met your daily target 3 months in a row. You were Employee of the Month. So you're looking more at your impact and what you did well in that role as opposed to what the role was about. So your CV is your best foot forward. You want your foot in. And also try and pay attention to the advert and what they're looking for, and make sure that you throw in keywords in your CV that speak to. So let's not do general CVs. You need to tailor make your CV to the role you're applying to.
So now, for someone who has been in the workplace for, how long does it take someone to move from entry level to middle management?
It's all on you. It's all on you.
So you can go 2 decades and you remain at the same position?
It's all on you. It's all about how intentional you are, and also it's about the space in which you're in.
Okay.
If you're in a traditional organization where they say everything moves a certain way, you also need to be realistic about your growth there. It's also an important question to ask during an interview to find out about the growth opportunities. But at the end of the day, it's about how intentional you are. You come into a role, you look at it, you give it the best you can, but always be engaging with your employer, your superiors. Always show interest and your ability to take on more. That's what I'm looking for if I were to promote someone in a job. I want to see at some point, it could be 6 months in, it could be 1 year in, that, okay, you have mastered the role you're doing. And if I want to keep you as an employer, I need to think, okay, how do I keep this person? And that's how the path to growth is opened. But if you don't show that initiative on your end, we just keep going.
But that then depends if the organization is horizontal or linear.
Exactly.
So if it's horizontal, there's no way I'll go because there's no upward there's no upward opportunity. So how long should I stay at one job before I move to get experience of another field and another field and another field?
I can't tell you that. That's based on you and your plans and where you see yourself. You know that question, where do you see yourself in 2 years? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? So you have to ask yourself that question. Okay, in this space that I'm in, 2 years in, I have grown professionally, because you still need to grow. Even if it's not upwards, you need to grow somehow. So it means you're developing yourself professionally. You're growing, you're learning more, you're increasing your skill level. You might not be growing in terms of job title. And if you want to grow in terms of job title, now you need to ask yourself, okay, is this the space where I'm going to do that? If not, then you need to ask yourself the hard question. Am I ready for the leap to the next level? And that takes a level of courage, especially in spaces where unemployment is high. Right, so you start exploring, applying, and seeing what's out there for yourself. But you know what you're doing it for. You're not just doing it for the sake of, oh no, now I want to be a manager. Why? Is it because you want a bigger paycheck? Do you want responsibilities? Are you bored in the space you're in? That's why I'm saying it's a lot about you, as opposed to perceptions and what people say you should be doing at that point.
But for most of us, promotions should come with a bigger salary, not responsibilities.
Yeah,
it should be in the other way around. But as for you, you have had an opportunity to work in a religious setup, in a philanthropic institution, in a youth-focused institution, in an education institution with scholarships. What has been your secret that you can share with other young people who would want to move from either entry to middle management, but mostly for me then it's your secret into getting experience in different fields because you're versatile?
I'm versatile mainly because I also realized early in my career the kind of person that I am. So it's part of self-management as well, understanding who you are, what your interests are, what you're good at. I realized very early in my career that I get bored easily. So I am an overall busybody. but you can't be a busybody in the workspace. You need some level of focus, right? Knowing that about myself, every space I find myself into, there's one thing I feel is important for me. I need to buy into the vision of the organization. What are they trying to achieve, right? If the vision is clear with me and I resonate with it, then my buy-in is automatic. So I want to be part of this train and contribute as much as I can. Once I'm in, I'm very intentional. I want to be where I am needed. So I will do my work. I will do my work as per my job description as best as I can. But in addition to that, I always look for opportunities to learn and grow. So in my very first job, my supervisor, who was also the executive director, was very open. So it was easy for me to go and say, I love my admin job. My first job was an admin job. I said, I love my admin job, but I see the guys there in programming are doing a lot of nice work with young people. Can I tag along to any of their workshops and see how they do this? Opportunities were opened. I was interested in governance very early in my career, and I said, could I take minutes in the board meeting? I just wanted to sit in the corner. I knew I was very good at taking notes, so I'd take notes and listen. That's how I learned how boardrooms work and how the higher levels in an organization run things, right? So it was my curiosity, it was my intentionality, it was also having an environment that was conducive for my learning. So also your employer plays a part in that as well.
Wow. I'm trying to think my first boss. Yeah, they did a good job actually. They also were open-minded and gave me that opportunity to also learn and see how things are supposed to be like. But as we are closing up, two things for me. Number one, why I'm trying to say, when you ask us our salary expectation, what do you guys mean? And what should I say when I'm in that interview, when I'm asked the question, what's your salary expectation?
So industries differ. They sometimes put in tiers. There's a high level, like 50 percentile going up in terms of salaries. So it can be the same job, and I'm sure you know this, that a person can be a marketing executive, but in different industries, they earn differently. So it's also trying to see affordability on the employer side. Can they afford you? It's unfair, though, for those who use it as an elimination tool. It shouldn't be used as such. It's just to see what your expectations are and to peg it up against what we have budgeted for and see if we can afford it. So you need to be courageous. You need to be very clear. So when you go for an interview for a role, as part of your research, find out what the benchmarks are within that space. If it's your first job, you look at what's reasonable. Look at your current life. Are you living at home? Are you living with your family? What works for you within the benchmark you are seeing? So you're already informed of what to expect from this program assistant job, for example. You're going into it and saying, okay, based on my research, my expectation is within this range. But also remember, I'm entry level. So always leave room for negotiation and say, yes, as much as I've set this amount out as my basic, I am inexperienced. Currently, my focus is to gain experience. Therefore, I'm willing to negotiate based on what the organization has set for this job.
Very diplomatic, yes.
Very, I know.
Then the final one, what has been when you look back on your career trajectory, what has been, there's a domino effect.
Yeah.
But we try and look and say, this is where I think everything started from. This was the point that has taken me to this stage. Do you remember that instance?
Sure. Considering how far back we're looking, I think it was still my first job. My very first job had a very large bearing in how I crafted my career moving forward, because it's where I discovered myself. I worked with a lot of young people. I started in admin, then I moved into the program work. It was a scholarship organization, so there was a lot of mentoring and working with young people who are in university. So I saw myself in a lot of these young people. So it was me imparting my life experience into these people and trying to help them move to the next stage. So in that, I realized that a lot of my career is going to be relational. As much as I am an introvert and I'm socially awkward a lot of the times, I do enjoy interacting with young people and just helping them figure themselves out. So once I figured myself out, it felt like, okay, I can help others. You don't have to be the loudest in the room. You don't have to be the shining star, which I don't think I've been my entire career, but I've always found pockets of opportunity to find my little space where I can maneuver through. So figuring myself out, being intentional, and genuinely enjoying what I do in that moment, I think also just helped move me along in my career. I've been fortunate to have employers who see that passion in me and who saw my enthusiasm and genuine interest in what the organization does.
Now, being a psychologist, just by having a conversation with you, I'm trying to pin around all, from where we started with the conversation, that now that you're saying you are socially awkward, I'm trying to see if I've seen that, but I have not seen that. And also what you had said, that people should have an open mind, because you're always in the gray area in most instances. And I think when I started learning about introverts and extroverts, people would be very clear to say, you are either this or that. No one ever talked about the gray area, because you're saying you're an introvert, but your job requires you to be relational and an extrovert. So you find pockets to be an introvert, and you also find pockets to be an extrovert.
Yeah, what you're saying is interesting in that it is me, yes, but it brings up a concept it's possibly a new buzzword, I suppose, where we've spoken about emotional intelligence, yes? So now one of the critical skills as you move along in your career is adaptability. So there's IQ, which is your book smart, right? And then there's EQ, which is your emotional intelligence. So your ability to be empathetic, to be responsible and all of that. Now there's your adaptability quotient, which is in addition to your emotional intelligence, where you manage self, right? In adaptability, it's where you are communicating, you are a critical thinker, you're a problem solver, you're adaptive. So adaptive is sort of, I don't want to say change yourself, but understanding what different spaces require of you. So if I'm running a workshop, for example, I can't be the mouse that I am when I'm at a networking event and I'm really scared of talking to people. I have to be open. allow people to interact, right? And then there are going to be spaces where you're required to listen and to be a bit more subdued. So the adaptability quotient, AQ, requires you to adapt to different spaces, to read the room. So reading the room is whatever space you're in, try and be the person that's required in that space. It might take a little more out of you than what your natural personality requires, but you'll always find moments to recharge. So adapt.
So now that adaptability is there and all these terms are coming out, I'm remembering that I have a group of friends where we sit down, long talks, debates and everything. One thing we've been talking about for the past 5 years, if not more, is we find or we identify people who are not socially intelligent. Socially intelligent then is you're in a social space. There are things you're supposed to do and there are things you're not supposed to do. That also even goes to the workplace. There are things that you would find that socially, no, that you are not supposed to do that. Some things you just have to help out, even if the person doesn't say it. I don't know if it fits to adaptability, but anywho, I think we are in the right path as a group. We should continue meeting.
It does. It's important.
Then the last one is, what was your worst career experience, or where you made maybe the biggest mistake of your life and you said, I think I will not recover from this? But probably, yes, you learned from it and it ended up being a good thing later on.
To be honest, I don't have one, but I've had lessons along the way which have shaped how I've been, shaped my career moving forward. I did have a career break. It wasn't intentional, but somewhere along the line, it was a decision I decided to stick with. I took a career break when I was transitioning from one country to another. And I decided to use that time then. I just gotten married to have children. So in the beginning, it was okay, at 3 months, like normal working women do, I'll then go back into the workplace. But it ended up being a 2-year break. It was hard in that, being someone who has always worked and earned a living in some way, now you're focusing on something else. But it was great because the break helped me look at myself in a different way. So that's where I started my small business, and that's where I started exploring the creative side of who I am, which has all contributed to the kind of professional that I am now. When I finally went into the workplace, I had that entrepreneurial mindset, and I was now a creative thinker. So now I'm thinking out of the box more and thinking of how to solve problems. I'm seeing problems as opportunities. Just because of the space that I was in for 2 years, where I was more nurturing, as opposed to 8 to 5, really focused in what I was doing. So that's I think one would say it was a setback, because you come back minus 2 years in your resume, but also came more mature and richer. But I did take a pay cut getting back into the workplace. So that, in terms of growth, set me back financially, but in terms of maturity and professional growth, I was already at a different level.
Charity, this has been a lovely one, and it's 2 decades now. So
not quite.
It's 2 decades. So we should sit again after another 2 decades, and I'm sure it will be a lot more intense than it was today again.
I hope so.
Yes. Thank you very much, Charity.
Thanks, Paddington.
Have a good one.
Thanks.